Deconstructing and breaking down one of the novels that I read in class, The Other Wes Moore, and I'm going to be presenting you with its messages and values that are hidden within it. To determine our success as humans. There are many different levels of successful people in this world, and different, or what we call social classes. We have the smart rich people, so the doctors, the lawyers, your CEOs, and then we have the people who are rich that didn't really need to be smart to get rich, like your celebrities, so like Kanye, Drake, and then you have your athletes like Ronaldo. Then you have your middle class people, which is just regular people driving like caravans and Civics, and who have regular office jobs or a regular factory job every day. And then you have the homeless people, or as we call it, like the lowest class of our society. And the deal with these people is that we always think it's their fault that they're there, but ultimately it's not because of that. It's because the margin of error in society in today's world is so small that with just one thing going wrong or one thing going right, you can turn your life around. So for example, if that homeless guy, all he had to do is hand in an application, if he gets the job, he can turn his life around just like that and become a middle class person. Or say a rich person, he spends millions of dollars, spends more than he earns, he can go into debt and lose really quickly everything he has. And this applies to the book I read, The Other Wes Moore, because if the author hadn't listened to his mother, who was giving really wise advice saying, oh, you should go to military school, or you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, if Wes hadn't done the simple action of just listening and actually doing it, then he could have ended up like the other Wes in prison. But vice versa, if you take the other Wes, who spent the rest of his life in prison, if you rewind his life and if he listened to his mother, or if his mother gave better suggestions or gave it more of an effort to make his life better, he would have been able to end up like the author and be successful. That are being conveyed through this book. As I read, the book starts off with two people, both named Wes Moore, young kids who grew up in the same ghetto neighborhoods in Baltimore. And they both had, their lives were a struggle growing up. They didn't have a father, only a single mother who was trying to take care of a lot of kids. And they didn't have the support that, say, the Western society usually has. The value message that is being conveyed here is that it doesn't really matter where you grew up, because they proved it by telling the story of how one of them managed to get out of all that, all this bad influence around him, and he managed to be successful out of it while the other didn't. So it just goes to prove it doesn't really matter where you grow up. Another value message that is being conveyed is the fact that it's the people around you that influence your success and influence who you are as a person. Some of it we can't control, some of it we can control. You can control your family, but you can't control your family, but you can control your friends. You can control the amount of good influences that you have other than your family. But when it comes to the distinct difference between the two Wes's, I think it's their family influences. One mother was a good influence, but then one mother was a great influence and went to the extreme to make sure that her kid was successful. A final value message is something simple, just as listening. Because as you can see, the author, although he was in military school, he called his mom. He was like, Mom, I want to get out of here. I don't want to do this anymore. His mom was like, just give it a try. He realized that his mom must be doing this for a reason, and although he wanted to kill himself in military school, he decided to just bear with it, because deep down he knew that something good was going to come out of it. And then on the flip side, the other Wes didn't really listen to his mom, and as you can see, didn't really end up having a successful life. So the novel represents, the whole entire novel represents the whole moral of it doesn't matter where you grow up. By representing these two people, the same name, grew up in the same neighborhood, and you'd think just by reading that, of what I just said, that they would have similar futures. But the book clearly represents that it doesn't matter where you grew up, because one succeeds and one doesn't, one gets out. And the novel also represents the whole moral of is that it's your influential figures in your life that determine your success and who you are as a person and who you will grow up to be. And we find 4 examples of that in the book. The first one being on page 95, when Wes's mom said, Wes called his mom when he was at military school, and he's like, Mom, I want to get out of here. And then his mom's like, no, you got to give this place a try. And that's just an example of having a good influence in your life, because Wes's mom, Joy, obviously knew that he didn't want to stay there, and he really hated it there, but she knew it was for the better of him, and she was going to force him to go there because she knew it would change him as a person and bring success into his life. And the second one was also from towards the author West, but it was from the military school. It was the military school that had a good influence on him, and since they cared that he succeeded, he also started to care about his success. So he started to care more about what he did and the decisions he made, just because good people around him were caring about him. And that's on page 115. Wes says that. Then we have a third one on page 74 when we look at the other Wes, and his mother Mary found drugs in his room and ended up flushing them down the toilet. He comes home and he's all mad, and he's like, "Mom, where's my drugs?" And she's like, "I flushed them down the toilet." And we see this and as soon as you read this, you're like, yeah, this is a good influential figure in his life. And it is good. But the difference between Joy's son, Wes, and Mary's son, Wes, is that Joy took it to the further extent and made sure that he wasn't leaving military school. And after Mary flushed his drugs down, she didn't do furthermore to monitor his progress on whether he was going to get back into drugs still or not. And then our final one is on page 27 when the other Wes's brother Tony is like, "Yo, you got to take this seriously, man. Don't goof around. It's not cool." When Wes talks about staying in school and stuff like that. But Tony himself spoke good influential words, but wasn't himself a good influence to Wes, his little brother. And just because he was a drug dealer at a young age and dropped out of school. So Wes looked up to his brother Tony, and that's what he saw. So when we're talking about who benefits from these value messages in terms of the book, it's clear that the author, Wes, is the one that benefited the most from these value messages. And we see that by the influential figures in his life. You could tell that the author had better influential figures in his life, like his mom, Colonel Brett, and stuff like that. But if you look at the other Wes, he didn't have as good of an influential family. But he also didn't choose good friends outside of his family or good influences to be in his life. And that's where we come in. We can't just blame the people around us for not being good influences. We got to be good influences for others. So when it comes to your family, obviously you can't pick if they're going to be a good influence on your life or not. But when it comes to your friends or people outside of that, you can definitely choose who you want to be, who you want in your life, and whether they're a good influence for you or not. And they say your friends shape who you are, and it's true, because if you look at your habits and your personality and stuff like that, and you look at your friends, they're very similar. But when we're talking about in terms of the audience who benefits from this, pretty much everyone benefits from this, including parents. Parents can look at this and it be an example as to how much pressure you're going to put on your kid to allow them to pick these influential figures very carefully in their lives. And it benefits young men so that we know who to pick, and we know it tells young men to make sure that you pick good influences. And it also benefits everyone in the sense that you have to learn how to be a good influence to everyone, because if everyone is a good influence to everyone, then we have more successful people in this world, and it'll make the world that much more of a better place. So yes, I do fully agree with all these value messages that are being conveyed in this book, and I fully agree that it's the influential figures in your life and the people around you that determine the amount of success you're going to have. And I fully agree that your friends shape who you are. And people could come back to me at that and say, "Oh, but you don't need anyone in your life to hinder you from achieving the goals you want to achieve. You think the way you need to think in order to achieve it." But if you look at the way I think and the way we make our decisions, it's because we were raised by the people around us. So the way we think and everything we know is determined by who's around us.